It's time to pick a side. The border war is on the air with BG and 10. All right, true believers, welcome into the border war for the last day of February, the 28th. TanMan, I always think of March 1st as the first day of spring. I know it's not really supposed to be the first day of spring, but
Groundhog gets it wrong every year anyway.
if you live in South Carolina, there's no such thing as a groundhog. Groundhog can't, I mean, there's never winter. Everybody always tells me, we've had big snows in spring. Mm-hmm. Well, not in the past 44 years while I've been alive. I don't even remember really big snows in February. In fact, I can't really think of but one or two big snows, period. Anyway, thank you for listening. If you're out there listening, if you're not listening, then
how would you hear this?
How would you even hear this?
Tell your friends.
Yep.
Listen to the show.
Yeah, because we are pretty good for what it costs you to listen, which is nothing but time. We're worth your time. You can follow us on Twitter at The Border War. You can follow me at BG_Border War and TanMan at TanMan3264. Our email is CarolinaBorderWar@gmail.com, and you can like and download us through the Spreaker app. And also, we link our podcast each week on Facebook. You can like and share that also. So, TanMan, college basketball season winding up. NBA basketball's got about another, 9 months until the playoffs start.
Hitting that dog days of the NBA season.
It is. It happens every year in baseball, too. You got teams that are out of the playoff race in July, but we've still got to play 80-something games. Anyway, so a lot of stuff going on right now. College baseball underway. College basketball coming to its apex. And a lot of things going on off the court in the world of sport, too. So for this week in sport, why don't you catch us up with what was going on?
This week, Virginia remains number one for the third week in a row. They're followed by Michigan State, Xavier, Villanova, and Duke. Same five as last week, just a little different order. North Carolina jumps up one spot to number 9. The Tigers of Clemson, they fall 3 spots to number 18. The Tar Heels extended their winning streak last night all the way up to 6 with a win at Syracuse, but it ended last night on a heave from just inside half court as they lose to Miami 91-88 despite Joe Barry's 31 points. They'll get Duke on Saturday night to round out the regular season. The Tigers lost their third game in a row with a loss at Virginia Tech, but they snapped that losing streak by beating Georgia Tech at home by 8 last Saturday. Their senior night is tonight versus Florida State. They'll wrap up at Syracuse on Saturday. BG's Gamecocks dropped, listen to this one, 13 threes in a win over Georgia. But they let another one slip through their hands on Saturday. They had a 12-point lead in the second half. They fall to Mississippi State on the road by 4 in overtime. Senior night tonight down there as well. They host LSU in a big one. They finish up at Auburn on Saturday. In NBA news, the Hornets have not lost since February the 11th, BG. Now,
go figure.
Granted, you've had a week, 8 days or so break in between there. But they've won 5 in a row, 4-0 last week.
Nice little streak.
Last night they beat the Bulls 118-103. They've got the Celtics tonight, the Sixers on Friday, Raptors on Sunday, all on the road before they come home next Tuesday to take on the Sixers. They currently sit at 28-33, and they're 4 games out of the playoff race.
And again, I guess it's a nice little thing to hang your hat on if you become the 7th or 8th seed in the NBA playoffs. But
listen, in the position they're in,
it would be something to write home about. If they make the playoffs, it's going to. In my opinion, it'd be a pretty big story.
They can't, they can't tank enough, so you might as well make a run at it. How do you eat an elephant, BG? One bite at a time. You can't get there without putting a few together, and they have. And finally, Justin Thomas shoots an 8-under to win the Honda Classic down at PGA National in Palm Beach, Florida. He defeats Luke List in the playoffs, but the big story out of this weekend, the Tiger Watch is on. Tiger, he finished even par for the tournament. I think he finished tied for 12th. 8 shots back. His third round 69 is his first round in the 60s in 917 days. 917 days. He's 8 shots back. He was 8 over for the week through the bear trap, which is 15, 16, and 17 down there. If he plays those half as good as he did, then you're talking about top 5 finish for Tiger. The watch is on.
How many majors are between us and Augusta right now? None. So you've got what?
5 weeks.
5 weeks.
I think it said 5 weeks.
I'll be watching.
He's on. The Tiger watch is on. There's your week in sport.
All right, so we're going to start off with some college basketball. Before we get into any analysis, let's sort of catch you up on the standings. In the ACC, I don't know, how many teams matter here?
1.
Okay, let me rephrase that. How many teams should I discuss in the standings?
No, we'll hit the top 5. Obviously, number 1 is a wrap. Virginia has that one wrapped up.
15-1 in the conference.
And then you start getting into some jockeying for position. The Tar Heels, right now, they're sitting, I guess, a game back of Duke for second place. The Tar Heels could finish anywhere from second if they win Saturday to 6th if they lose. And
you go all the way down to the middle of the pack with Florida State, and they're only 3 games off the pace. I mean, it's really clogged up.
Really busted there. The Tigers have still got a really good chance to jump into that top 4 and get the double bye. Like we said, they get Florida State tonight at home. The Noles typically play better down in Tallahassee than the road. Then they go to Syracuse. 2 really winnable games for Clemson. And NC State, maybe the surprise of the league right now, where they were last year, losing Dennis Smith Jr. and bring in Kevin Keats and be where they are at 10-6.
And they're playing hot right now.
They're playing hot, so they're going to be a difficult team to deal with. One team that I don't think you've got much to worry about is poor Pitt.
Oh, my word.
They seem pretty hapless.
They have lost 17 games in a row, TanMan.
Yeah, you see what last week when they played Virginia, they had 7 points at halftime.
Well, I mean, I think you retweeted it.
Yeah.
I can't remember who came out and tweeted that Pittsburgh should no longer have a basketball team. This should be it. We should just pull the plug on this.
Yeah.
This is not a thing.
Well, last night it was senior night in Chapel Hill. So, of course, today I watched the speeches for Joel Berry and Theo Pinson. And Pinson's kind of a joker. And he kind of going through and naming a couple guys and thank you for this and rehashing some memories. He comes to Cam Johnson and said, I see why you left Pitt now.
Yeah.
I was like, man, that's cold.
And the thing about Pitt is that
they're a mess, man.
If you go back and look into the 70s, I mean, they were pretty good at a lot of different sports. And it just seems like they've fallen off the map everywhere.
Yeah, look, they were an NCAA tournament staple with Jamie Dixon as the head coach. And maybe things got a little stale up there. He was there for a really long time, but things got a little stale. I don't know if people... expectations got a little bit out of hand. They kind of had hit a little bit of a downturn there right before he left, and now they've gone from that downturn to just drowning.
I don't know how
awful.
you explain this. They're hapless, and forget their 0-17, conference record. They're 8-22 overall. I mean, I don't know who some of those losses are to, but they have to. You're an ACC team, and you're clearly getting beat by directional universities. You have to be to go 8-22.
Well, hey, look, I don't remember the exact teams they lost to start the year, but they lost to some real. I want to say Liberty, maybe. I mean, they lost to some terrible teams. So.
How disappointing do you think Syracuse and Notre Dame seasons have been? I mean, that's pretty far down there for 2 perennial basketball powers.
Yeah, Syracuse, this is kind of about right where they've been the last few years. They've kind of been.
They need some new blood.
They need some new blood
badly.
Mike White was the coach in waiting up there, and I guess he got tired of waiting and took the job at Washington.
How often does that happen?
Not often, but they're kind of right. Yeah, ever since they come to the ACC, I think 1 year they finished 3rd, and other than that, it just seems like they're kind of in the middle of the pack. Notre Dame is the one. Right now, they're just on the outside of the tournament. You look down. They're 7-9, 17-12 right now. Bonzie Colson has been out since the end of December with a broken bone in his foot. Matt Farrell just now recently got back. That team is not a 17-12 team, and I don't know what Colson is going to look like when he comes back. You know, when it's not like having a broken arm where you can still run and work out and do these things. You got a foot. Yeah, you can't really do a lot of running with the foot. So how his conditioning is, I don't know how much he'll actually play, but if they can get back to at least getting back on track
make a
this
run
weekend,
in the tournament a little bit.
They're going to be a dangerous team. I wouldn't want any part of them in an ACC tournament, and if they get in the big dance, they're going to be a lower seeded team, and somebody's going to get shafted by having those guys in there. So watch out for Notre Dame. Over in the SEC where you guys live, you
unfortunately living in the basement right now.
Well, we'll talk about that. We're glad you brought that up. You guys right now, 6-10. You're 15-14. You're 12th in the conference, I think. In the SEC, you guys have the 14 teams. The bottom 4 teams play in that first round.
Right.
The win over Georgia gives you 2 wins over Georgia, and you got a game against LSU tonight.
Right.
The 2 teams right ahead of you. You get a win tonight, which makes this huge. This really, in my opinion, makes this a must-win because you get a win tonight. Now you're in a position that, one, you can escape possibly getting out of that bottom 4 because I don't think you're going to beat Auburn down the road.
No. We already talked about they're going to drag us.
But it gives you a chance to get out of that bottom 4, out of that first-round game, and would guarantee that you would not finish any worse than 500, which would make you eligible for the NIT, if that's something that you guys are interested in doing, participating in down there.
You and I think the same thing about all these tournaments, man. If you get extra basketball, go play extra basketball.
Well, when you got a young team, when LSU didn't go to the NIT a few years ago with Ben Simmons, okay. I mean, that team is not going to, that team was never going to be the same team the next year. But with you guys, you've got some younger players. Mm-hmm. Younger players, more practice, more games. There's no downside to participating in an event like that.
I agree. I agree. So, I mean, if we could make that sort of like the football team last year.
Yep.
If you could make a bowl game, you get extra practice.
Whatever
cares what bowl
game
it is?
Who cares where it is? But like I said, tonight you get the win. You get the 2 games over 500, and then even if you go, you lose Saturday and then you lose your first tournament game, that puts you at 500 and eligible for the NIT. So, big one for the Gamecocks coming up. Going to the top of the standings, Auburn and Tennessee right now. The 2 biggest surprises, in my opinion, maybe 2 of the bigger. Auburn may be one of the biggest surprises in all of college basketball. Right now, sit at 12-5, but they've dropped 2 in a row.
The biggest surprise will be if they don't get put on sanctions within the next 2 years. Yeah. That would be more surprising.
That's probably coming. How dangerous do you think a Kentucky team is sitting down there right now? Right now, they're just outside of that top 4 and getting those.
A couple of weeks ago, we talked about this, and I told you that I did not think they were a team I would want to put. I wouldn't want to go up against in a one-off lose and go home scenario.
Yeah,
that they're a team that can knock out anybody in the country. I mean, I'm not saying they could beat anybody in the country consistently, but on any given night, this is a team with enough talent to beat anybody if the ball falls the right way.
I'll tell you one to watch out for next weekend in the SEC tournament. Watch out for Texas A&M. Those guys, they got off. They're 7-9 in the conference right now. They're 18-11. Joe Lunardi's got them in the tournament. That was a team that had a lot of high expectations. They've got some NBA players on that roster. They haven't lived up to the high expectations to start the year, but get them in that tournament scenario. They could be a dangerous bunch. They're going to be a hard out. Again, a hard out for anybody that draws them.
I sort of feel the same way about Alabama. Alabama's a team to me that they always play hard. They always defend well. In just a 1 versus 1, if you lose, you're done tournament. That's just not a team I'd like to play. They drag everybody down into the mud with them.
Yeah, but Auburn, Alabama, they just. You watch them and you keep hearing Alabama's on the come up.
Shoot.
They're on the come up, Alabama, and it seems like every year they have the same. Every year they're like 18-13.
Yeah, no, you're right about that.
Every year they're in the NIT.
But again, though, I'm not talking about their success long term. I'm talking about
dealing with one game for 40 minutes.
You played a game yesterday at 8 p.m. It's 1 p.m. the next day. You're playing Alabama. Nah, I don't want them on a day like that.
Yeah. We're in the SEC. We're going to stay there for a minute, BG. It's coming up on that time where you start trying to weed out the haves and the have-nots. Coach of the Year, Player of the Year will be coming out soon. Who have you got as your SEC Coach of the Year and SEC Player of the Year?
I have a real problem picking Bruce Pearl for anything, so I just refuse to do it. He looks like that guy that would be sitting in the hot tub with too much chest hair and a cigar, and he says something to you that makes you want to get out.
With a lot of like suntan oil.
Yeah, and he says something to you as a young person that makes you want to get out of the hot tub. Like, I don't know. I just
kind of feel a little uncomfortable here, Bruce.
I can just hear, like, at family reunions, like, somebody being like, I don't want to be in the room with Uncle Bruce. Like, honey, you don't have to go in there.
Just go in the other room.
and he's got that big smile when he finds out that he's done. So, so I'm going to go with Rick Barnes, former Clemson Tiger that he is, but I've got a lot of respect for Rick Barnes. I love the way he coaches. And I knew Tennessee was going to have a pretty good year, but I mean they've done well. They've had a good season.
Really well.
So that's my Coach of the Year. We'll just trade those off.
All right, Coach of the Year, I disagree. I'm going with Crazy Uncle Bruce. That team was in the bottom.
No, he's going to win it.
Auburn barely had a basketball program for the last 20 years, and Bruce Pearl has got these guys first place in a conference with Florida, with Kentucky, with Tennessee. Auburn right now is at the top of the list. They've been a top 10 team this year. Never in a million years would you have won any money on that one.
No. I mean, you're right. And you're also right when you agreed with me a few minutes ago that it's probably going to come at a price.
Well, now, whether or not Bruce Pearl gets to keep his Coach of the Year award, who really knows?
I'll tell you, we're going to have a bigger discussion at some point.
Well, we will.
About whether or not you can win squeaky clean in college sports anymore. But anyway, but because I'm saying when you go to Auburn to be a basketball coach, I'm sorry, you better cheat.
You better. You can.
Not at Auburn.
But you asked in general, can you? Of course you can. We're a walking, living, breathing example of.
I wish everyone could see the TanMan's face right now.
You can win without any extracurricular nonsense.
You guys have the legislature in your pocket. Forget recruiting. I mean, God, like you did things in the 1920s to change state laws to help win basketball games. And I mean, and I'm not taking anything away from you. I'm just saying.
How's the song go? Haters gonna hate.
I don't know. That's not the type of music I listen to.
My SEC Player of the Year. I'm staying in Auburn, baby. Mustafa Heron, the sophomore. That's the deal with this Auburn team. Last year, they were young. They took some lumps. This year, those guys came back, and they're swinging back. Heron is giving you 16.7 a game. Give me Mustafa Heron and the Auburn Tigers to sweep the SEC awards.
Give me Yonte Maton out of Georgia. Look, he's leading the league in points.
Yeah.
I think he's averaging like 19.5 points a game. Not that Georgia's done anything great. It's like I told you before the show, man. You look at the players in the SEC, nobody just jumps out at you. And I get what you're doing. I mean, you want to pick a player off a team that, that has impacted the team.
Yeah.
In the win-loss column. Georgia's another one of those teams, sort of like Alabama, that you feel like you've been sitting around waiting on to get. I mean, they're sitting at 7-9. Nothing's really changed in Georgia.
Right.
But that kid looks to me to be an offensive talent. But nobody consistently shows up on. I mean, if you look at the top 5 scorers, and then you look at the top 5 rebounders, the top 5 assist guys, they're all 5 different guys.
Yeah.
In the SEC, everybody's all over the place.
Well, that's pretty much where that conference is everybody's just kind of.
In fact, Chris Silva was one of the only names I showed that showed up in the top 5 players in 3 different categories, but I don't think he's even in the conversation.
No, he didn't win enough.
No, just play, and probably not enough for my guy from Georgia either, but that was going to be my vote.
All right, in the ACC, my coach of the year, I will stay on Tobacco Road, but it's not Roy Williams. It's certainly not Mike Krzyzewski. Give me Kevin Keats for ACC Coach of the Year. Tony Bennett is an easy pick. I think you could look at Brad Brownell, who's got Clemson overachieving, but Kevin Keats, he comes in that NC State team the last few years of Gottfried's tenure. Last year, they have a lottery pick in Dennis Smith. They have a losing record. Just seemed like they were constantly underachieving, despite the one or two runs to the Sweet 16 they had a handful of years ago. But it just seemed like you expected more out of them. Keats has now got them bought in, playing good basketball, a chance for a double bye in the ACC tournament.
Okay. I think we both agree that Tony Bennett's going to win it.
I think Tony Bennett's probably going to win it.
And he probably should. We talked about last week, this is the first time Virginia has been ranked number one since 1982 or 83. Okay, but now, look, try to be fair about this, okay? Uh-huh. Everybody that listens to the show knows that you hate Clemson.
Right.
But just try to listen to somebody that's more reasonable about it, like me.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give my nod to Brownell.
Okay.
Look, this is a guy that everybody and their brother this time last year was on sports talk radio saying, fire him. And when they didn't fire him, every Clemson fan I know said one of two things. Why didn't we fire Brad Brownell? Or who is Brad Brownell? Because they only watch football, or they're Duke fans during the basketball season. But the ones who were, quote-unquote, Clemson basketball fans last year, everybody wanted him gone. I didn't hear anybody say, bring this guy back.
Yeah.
And to face that kind of adversity and to have this team sitting in third place, I mean, that's an accomplishment. I don't know how much of it is him.
It is.
I don't know. But I think you get blamed for it, you should get the credit for it.
You hit the nail on the head. I think we agree there's a high likelihood that Tony Bennett's going to win it when you look at the fact that he's now won his third outright ACC regular season title. He joined a club that includes Dean Smith, Roy Williams, Mike Krzyzewski, Vic Bubas, and Frank McGuire. All five of those guys are either coached at Duke or North Carolina. And so now Tony Bennett has joined that club. So impressive move there.
And Virginia's been hanging right under that elite status for a few years now, but
They need
to make a run in the tournament.
They need to make a run in the tournament to get some folks off their back. Who you got as player of the year?
You're going to love this, of course. I'm going to go with Marvin Bagley Jr.
Marvin Bagley Jr.
from Duke University. Look, I don't like Duke. I don't know anything about Bagley as a kid. I just know he's a dominant player, and he's all over top 5 ranks in the ACC. It's kind of hard not to see his name. He's everywhere.
He's everywhere. My ACC Player of the Year.
This is going to shock everyone.
It is going to blow your socks off. Off the beaten path. Nobody is going to see this one coming.
Grayson Allen.
Whatever.
Are you serious? You didn't vote for Grayson? I mean,
Joel Berry is the best player. He is the best player in the ACC. Have you watched Joe Berry lately?
He's a scoring machine.
Yes, I have. But have you?
Yes.
But seriously, have you watched him?
I actually figured out a software that let me black out everyone on the screen but Joel Berry. Yes, I did.
I don't need the software. I see it with my eyes. All I see is Joel Berry. Berry is giving.
Why are your pupils shaped like tiny red hearts right now,
giving
TanMan?
you 18 points a game. Last night he gives you 31. They're down 16 or something like that in the second half. Puts them on his back. That's what he's done, man.
He's done it frequently.
He has put this team on his back.
Where is this team right now without him this season?
Oh,
I don't know if they have a winning record.
I think we're hovering around the pretty average mark. Yeah, I think we're
he
like
has
18
been
and 13.
the only difference maker on that team consistently. Other guys have shown up a game or here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but you're right, and there's never a night he doesn't bring it ever.
Yeah,
I've never tuned in and felt like Barry's cashed out right now, and I've definitely seen that with Chris Silva. I've definitely seen that with Well, I mean, Bagley's a young example, so that's not really fair.
No, he definitely hasn't cashed out. He knew coming into the year. He declared for the draft.
Yeah.
He was in the draft, I guess, pool, you'd say, for about 2 days, and then the story has it he went into Roy Williams' office and basically said, "I don't want to leave," and then pulled his name out. It wasn't. I didn't like my draft stock, or I didn't like what the scouts told me. It was that I don't want to go. So he's come back, and he is fully bought in.
He probably knew in his heart of hearts this was a
right
really steep battle for a national title this year. You didn't have a bunch of guys coming back, major contributors gone.
I think a sleeper, you could argue a sleeper could be Luke May, but I think May's averaging a double-double. He come from almost nothing last year,
right?
At a spotlight role this year. I think he's giving you about 17 and 11 a game. But give me Joel Berry for my Player of the Year, man. Throw the senior a bone. Let's reward the seniors for staying in school, man.
Bagley,
bum. Speaking of Bagley, let's move on. Round 2, North Carolina at Duke this weekend. They boomed it back. I guess seems like it was last week, but a couple weeks ago, they come to Chapel Hill. We know the story. We know what happened. A big second half, and the Tar Heels won. What are you, as you watch these two teams now, as they've kind of matured into the team that they're gonna be? They are what they are now. They got to make a run with what they have. Which one of these two squads do you think is most pressed or most ready to make a run?
The Blue Devils.
All right.
I really do.
Explain.
Because all right, your thing was you kept hitting on Duke's defense, okay, and early on in the season, you definitely were on to something. But when you look at their defensive rankings, there's very little defensive difference between North Carolina and Duke right now.
Okay,
not over the course of the season. Now, even in rebounding, the stats are very, very, very close.
They were one. I don't know what they are now. They were 1 and 2 whenever we played the first time.
Yeah,
we were 1, they were 2, and it was like a percentage point.
Yeah, and difference. That's basically the way it is now. And I think North Carolina still has the rank of the higher rank in rebounds, but as far as overall points against, it's like 6 of one, half a dozen of another. And I think Duke just has a little bit more consistent offense. That's it. And now, I'm really talking about like a 45-55 split here. We're not talking about.
Let me run this one by you.
I like Duke's inside game too. I think getting the ball into Bagley is a lot less likely to go into a slump for 2 games in the middle of March.
All right, I've been working on a theory, and I've pitched it around to a few buddies, and you got a point. After the first North Carolina game, and really in some of that game, Duke has switched to playing almost exclusively zone defense.
Right.
You go back, take the Clemson game, take the road game at Virginia Tech the other night. They played this zone defense, right? They're scoring. I think they scored 60 something against Clemson. Another 60-something last night against Virginia Tech. I think that this switch to zone has hurt them. Because to me, you watch them play, go back and watch them at the beginning of the year. The defense wasn't great. In fact, it wasn't even good a lot of the time. But you go back and watch them at the beginning of the year, and it seemed like everything, man, they were pedal to the metal, full throttle. They were running. If you were going to beat that team, you were going to have to beat them by scoring 85 or 90 points.
Right.
I think now that they've gone to this, it seems I watch them and I feel like, and I don't know if the numbers back me up on this, but I watch them and I feel like they're playing a little slower, like they're not getting as many possessions. And I think now you don't have to score 85 or 90 points to beat this team. If you can get to 65, you're going to be in a ball game.
I see what you're saying, and I hope I don't sound arrogant here, but I think the numbers don't back you up on that, because I think what they're doing is they're kind of trying to play a half-court offense now because I think they feel like their inside game is so strong that in a half-court possession they can still score, and it's helped them defensively. Now, you're right. What I would love to see, and I don't have this in front of me, is how the points against them have changed. Because you can't, I mean, you know I harp on this all the time.
It's going down. But like I said, I think the game, their games in general have slowed down. The scoring has slowed down.
And I mean, I've always thought this. I mean, college basketball games are short. The time runs quickly.
Yes.
And if you can, well, like a team like South Carolina last year is the perfect example. I mean, South Carolina wasn't better than a lot of teams they beat in the tournament, but they used possession offense and really annoying defense to keep themselves in games.
Yeah.
But you're right in the fact that it doesn't seem like Duke is the type of team that normally has to resort to those kind of tactics. But I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that Krzyzewski has a reason to do it.
Well, I think he's trying to hide. I think he's trying to hide those guys on defense. I don't think that they play. You saw them when they play man to man.
Right, yes.
They didn't play any defense. They're long. I mean, they're big bodies. Playing the zone makes sense. But my theory on the zone is, if you're like Syracuse and that's what you do, and that's all you do, man, it's hard to play a good zone. And that's if you're someone like Syracuse and that's all you do, man, it's ingrained in you. I don't think that it's something that you could just switch to on a whim in the middle of a season and all of a sudden be locking people down. If you can't play man-to-man defense, I think he switched to zone to try and hide some of those guys. And the length and everything, on paper it makes sense, but I'm not buying that all of a sudden this is going to be a lockdown defensive team. And if you're not going to be a lockdown defensive team, and you've cost yourself possessions now, to me, I think it was just my opinion, and I've won 0 games at the coaching level, and Mike Krzyzewski has won many more than 0.
Yes, many more than 0.
But to me, they just look, they look different. I think they still don't have a point guard. Now, I do like the idea of moving Grayson Allen into a air quote point guard role because he was obviously in a funk, and now he's obviously more involved and out of a funk.
Yes, no, he's looked good the past couple games for sure.
But still don't have one. You still don't have a point guard. And come March, it bit them last year. I think it'll bite them this year. On the flip side, North Carolina, they went through their
They definitely have a point guard.
We got a point guard, baby. We've got a point guard. But they went through that skid. People starting to write them off. Then they went through, where they played something like 4 games in 6 days or something crazy like that. They won them all. They went on a streak. Last night, senior night, a lot of emotion. It got the best of them early, I believe, and they fought all the way back, and it just a crazy ending to the game. But I think this team is peaking at the right time. They're playing great basketball. And I've told you for weeks, don't sleep on the Tar Heels. I think whatever was going on before,
sleeping on them, but
nobody's they're not. You turn on ESPN and listen to the talking heads, and North Carolina doesn't really come up in a lot of the discussions.
You're right. North Carolina traditionally has been disrespected in basketball. You're right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that
you don't have the benefit of.
I'm glad that you're finally coming over getting onto our side about this.
I mean,
we're tired of being overlooked in basketball. It's ridiculous.
As a South Carolina fan, it's very difficult for me to understand what you're talking about because year after year after year, we hear Gamecocks, top of the league. So it's confusing for us to hear you talking about that stuff.
You will hear more about Gamecocks coming up very soon because the man's going to come knocking.
No,
he's going to come knocking.
Frank says we're clean, man.
Yeah, well, look, it came out last week toward the end of, I think it may have even been Friday afternoon. Arizona coach Sean Miller caught on wiretap discussing a $100,000 payment to star freshman, potential number 1 overall pick DeAndre Ayton.
Good for him, man. Somebody else would have paid him if he hadn't.
Probably. He was probably getting offered 50 from someone if Miller was offered 100. But my thing is, all the names, this is going through courts. And so part of course is discovery. Things started getting released. You saw some names.
Let's get this out of the way. Arizona needs to fire Sean Miller. They need to fire him. They need to fire him yesterday. And not because you're angry with it. That's just what you do.
Yeah.
That's what happens. You have to. And like this kind of thing outside of Cam Newton and Auburn and Mississippi State, once this stuff hits the media, somebody's got to pay. Look, when you get dollar amounts, there's a source.
That's gotta go, right?
Yeah.
I will say, I think ESPN, and this is shocking because they never do this, but I think they were a little dishonest in the reporting on this over the weekend.
They oversimplified it, is what I would say. And they know what they're doing. We live in a headline society. People want to read the headline. They don't even want to read the article.
Right. But you're talking about people involved in an FBI investigation. I think you should at least be. Yeah, it's very strange. I think you should at least be somewhat honest. I told you the other day, if you've been keeping up with this story, the Sean Miller thing, there seems to be right now, and this is all fluid because it's liable to change as we sit here and talk. But right now, there seems to be levels to this thing. You have the Sean Miller level,
A, B, and C.
Yeah, you have the A level where coaches are implicitly involved in this, i.e., Sean Miller. Then you have the B level where the players are taking the money. South Carolina, P.J. Dozier, Clemson, Blossom Game, NC State with Dennis Smith Jr., $73,000 for Dennis Smith Jr. to finish 10th in the ACC, wherever it was.
Yeah.
Bad investment. And then you have the third level where the active players' names were coming out. Miles is at Michigan State, Wendell Carter at Duke, Tony Bradley, where these guys were taking meetings or having meals, which is perfectly acceptable. But the headline is Duke and North Carolina implicated in FBI scandal. It's simply not true.
Well, look, man, you're not naive. You know this. As soon as you click on that article, mission accomplished.
Oh, yeah.
If you find out that it's not true when you read the article, they're fine with that.
Yeah.
They just want you to click the article. I'm not telling anybody anything that you don't know, but look, when it comes to news of any type, political, sports, otherwise, it does not pay to already know what you think you know before you read stuff anymore.
All
right. We all get locked in our little narrative, and we can't be told differently. And it's just as true in sports as anything else. And ESPN knows that Duke and North Carolina are the two names that are going to get people to click, so they put it in there.
Well, all right.
It's just that simple.
I think they played Arizona. I think they played at Oregon Saturday night. It came out late Saturday afternoon that Sean Miller was not going to coach the game. I think now it's breaking as we're sitting here talking. It's breaking that their Board of Regents is going to call an emergency meeting to discuss his situation, which I imagine will be him getting terminated.
Got to.
But when it comes to the players, DeAndre Ayton played Saturday night, and he played well like he usually does. You seem to be a man who's perfectly fine with the cheating in the world. Well, what do you think? Should these guys sit? Should schools sit them? How should the schools approach this? Because
I don't know. I mean, does it help any to sit them? The NCAA, they've come down. They're so inconsistent. They come down hard on some schools that announce things ahead of time. They come down hard on schools that don't sit them. I mean, like, there's no consistency to anything. I think that in a way, it depends on what you think you know.
Uh-huh.
In a situation like this, yeah, I'd probably sit him. Because you're dealing with, when you get into six-figure money, I mean, and it's all over the place.
To me, I said this I tweeted this out, if Arizona wants to not look like a giant schmuck in this whole deal, DeAndre Ayton and Sean Miller, from now to the end of time, they might as well be twins. They are joined at the hip on this thing.
They're never going to see one name without the
other.
No,
they are going to be linked for the end of time. Yeah, and I get if you play a player and you find out that he is ineligible down the road, that you forfeit ball games, right?
Right.
That's the rule.
Yes.
All right. You sit DeAndre Ayton now, and say you win, and it's found out that he's later on ineligible, and you forfeited every game he's played
It's not going to matter anyway.
It's not gonna, but you win the Pac-12, whatever it's called now, Pac-12 title.
So you're basically saying the same thing you said last.
You could salvage a little bit of a reputation,
right.
Could you not?
Well, no, but look at what you said last week. If you win it, if you win anything and they take it away from you, they can't really take it away from you because you can still say you won it.
You can still say you won it, but this kind of goes beyond. This kind of
it's just money,
huh?
It's just money.
I'm saying that you want to, you got a coach offering. You got a coach on a federal wiretap offering to pay a kid $100,000 to sign. Man, you want to look like you are bringing down the hammer. We're not going to stand for this. We're not, you're not going to make us look awful. We're not going to be schmucks in this deal.
You say we're not going to stand for this, and as soon as this season's over, we're going to handle it. That's what you say.
Sure, DeAndre Ayton will never play here again.
Once we lose the last game of the tournament,
he is out of here. Do you believe these coaches? Because it came out. Frank Martin said what something to the effect.
Frank did not hold back.
I would be very surprised if PJ Dozier is involved in this in any way. Are you kidding me? Of course he's involved.
Well, here's my thing. Here's my thing with that particular press conference. Frank knows that. Okay, I think this is just me personally. Now, this is just from being around people and being around teachers and having worked with a lot of kids. I think that's Frank's way of guilt tripping Dozier. That's my take on that. I think that's his way of saying to PJ something he's not comfortable saying to him one-on-one because I don't think he wants to know. And that is, well, PJ, me and you were good, right? You would have told me if something like that was going on. So I know you're not involved.
Right.
Right.
I see
what
you're
saying?
Yeah.
That's what I think is going on with that. Now, is it kind of a little strange to do that through a press conference? Yes. Because when all this stuff broke last year with Patino, I remember a local guy here saying on the radio something to the effect of there's a difference between not knowing and basically sending out the message of I don't want to know.
Right.
But Frank Martin does strike me as the kind of guy who could just blindly trust people that he has no business trusting because they told him that he could trust them.
No, I ain't buying it. Frank Martin is the kind of guy that can see through bull crap in the middle of the night with a mask over his face. He knows exactly what happened. Now,
so then you're saying he's okay with it then?
I'm saying that.
Does he seem like that kind of guy?
No. Now, all right. I think there's a difference between.
Well, walk me through what you think the scenario was. What's the assistant's name? I can't remember.
I can't. Anyway,
so when he hires the guy,
what I think is there's a difference between I knew he was taking money, or I knew he had taken money, and I now know he took money.
Right.
I don't think that last year when they're doing all, I don't think he knew that Dozier was on the tape. I think now he knows that Dozier was on the tape.
Okay.
But to come out and go, there's no way that would never happen.
Tell me your take on this, because this is what I think the average person listening to our show doesn't understand, and I don't. Okay, so, I've been around high school sports pretty intimately. Mm-hmm. Like, I've gone into athletic directors' offices every day and just sat and talked in high schools I've worked in, whatever. Okay, so I realized that you get in these big arenas, when you get right down to it, these programs are pretty small. I mean, there's a handful of people involved. Mm-hmm. And my impression of college basketball is very similar. Like, I would suspect that, everybody who works in Colonial Life, from the janitors to everybody else, knows Frank Martin and all the rest of those guys intimately. Because there's not that many of them.
Oh, yeah.
And they're there a lot.
Yeah.
So, how does this happen without Frank Martin knowing? And he asked the question, how am I supposed to know what happens in July? How am I supposed to know what happens at 11 o'clock
The NCAA
at night?
has so many rules about when you can interact with kids. There's no way to know exactly what's going on every minute of the day. But I'm just saying, to now look at it and go, I don't know. There's no way he's doing that. To me, he's a little disingenuous. We're up against the clock. Hour 1 in the books. Hour 2. We'll take a look at Roger Goodell and Jerry Jones, Adam Silver changing the NBA postseason, maybe, and a little college baseball. South Carolina and Clemson.
A baseball
coming up this weekend.
Go Redskins! Hail to the Redskins. You trying any ghost peppers this week?
Des Bryant called.